Springfield's news and talk.
Let's talk about vaccines. And the CDC several weeks ago saying that they are updating the list of vaccines for children, and that includes the COVID-19 vaccine. And there was speculation, this happened before the election, and there was speculation that states are going to take that, as they typically do when the CDC updates their list, and make that a mandate statewide for, say, children to go to school. So there's already a list of vaccines and a schedule of vaccines that children have to get in order to be admitted into school. And that list is, widely available with your pediatrician. But there's also, exemptions. You can do a religious or a medical exemption in Illinois. But the speculation was before the election that there would be some kind of push after the election to require COVID-19 vaccines for kids to go to school. So I've been watching closely this website of a panel in Illinois that looks at these things. It's the Immunization Advisory Committee, and been having that on one of the at my home office, or really even on my laptop here or elsewhere. I have probably 80 different tabs on 2 different windows of all the different things that I monitor all throughout the day, and it can get kind of confusing at times, but I've been going to this website for the Immunization Advisory Committee and refreshing it every day. I'll stumble upon the tab and be like, oh, let's refresh that. No meeting scheduled. No meeting scheduled. No meeting scheduled. Well, I had the tab open yesterday and it refreshed, and it showed that indeed there is a meeting scheduled now. So if you follow me on Twitter, you saw this. The Illinois Immunization Advisory Committee meeting scheduled for today, December 22nd, 12:30. And the agenda includes COVID-19 bivalent vaccine coverage updates, but it says explicitly no votes are scheduled for this meeting. So you can see again, they did update their meetings, December 22nd, that's today, Immunization Advisory Committee meeting. And if you look at the agenda, the topics range from having several different presentations about, like, for instance, the history of vaccines and health impact, also adult and childhood immunization standards and coverage levels, plus they will discuss the COVID-19 bivalent vaccine coverage updates and grant updates, and topics to focus on in 2023, but it explicitly says no votes are scheduled for this meeting. So this is something we've been watching, and they are going to have that meeting today. Governor J.B. Pritzker will share with you what he had to say when he was asked about this after the election. And after the election, the governor essentially saying that, hey, this is going to be – because, listen, the governor at one point, he said that it's going to be up to the legislature as to whether COVID-19 vaccines are going to be required for school kids. But then he said that it's up to this panel now. So here's the governor just after the election talking about how this is going to be up to this advisory committee to make that decision.
Well, on the former question, I'd just say, they meet on a regular basis to look at vaccines and, what requirements there ought to be. There are no policies or plans to expand to include a COVID-19 vaccine in those requirements.
So he says that they meet regularly, but if you look at the actual meeting schedule for this committee, it is far from regular. We're looking here at, the meeting, of course, for December 22nd, but the last time they met was December 1st of 2021. Before that, they didn't meet at all in 2020. They met in May of 2019, December of 2018, March of 2017, and then November of 2016. So definitely not a regular list of meetings there. Let's get your phone calls at 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
About 3 years after this is all forgotten, what will come up is how much the pharmaceutical companies in this country is pushing all this crap and making billions of dollars. That's what's going to happen.
You already see that a lot of the corporate media, all throughout COVID-19 in their reporting, they talked about the numbers of COVID, this, that, and the other, the numbers of deaths, and then a lot of questions about, was it with COVID, was it without COVID? And then they'd go to break, and it would say, brought to you by Pfizer.
Yeah, that's what you can bet your ass and Sonny Sweet Jesus. That's what's going to happen. After it's all said and done, we'll be just like we do after every time we have one of these national crises. Somebody steps up and makes a killing on it, and we're stuck with holding the bag.
Yeah, and a lot of tax dollars involved in all of this. And the survival rate for COVID has always been like 98 point some odd percent, depending on your age, 99 point some odd percent, depending on your age. But we've spent trillions of dollars on this since the beginning of the pandemic with the first aid package under former President Trump. He did not want to do another one, but then you got President Joe Biden, and he passed yet another aid package with millions and millions of dollars. Like, for instance, the city of Springfield is sitting on like 20 some odd $million right now, just sitting there. That was from federal COVID relief. What happened is the expansion of inflation to historic levels because the Federal Reserve just pumped out that money at the behest of Congress. So now we're dealing with higher inflation, higher interest rates, money supply issues, all of that. But down to the issue of vaccines, and again, we'll be covering what happens at this vaccine committee today at around 12:30. There could be some public comments that'll be interesting. But the idea of vaccine mandates and vaccine passports, if you remember, that was something that even Chicago was doing. Major cities were doing here in the United States, seeming to take a playbook out of what China is doing. But they relaxed all of those, and even here in Illinois, they relaxed some of those mandates on, say, K through 12 staff. But what about for K through 12 students? Is that going to happen? Apparently not today. So they're not going to be taking any votes at this advisory committee in Illinois. But you've got the impacts that have already hit the U.S. military, and thousands of members of the military were impacted by the vaccine mandates that were just lifted through the passage and implementation of the National Defense Authorization Act. And the headline here is U.S. military members who refused COVID shot, they await answers and face challenges. So there were members of the military that were let go for not complying with the vaccine mandates. But now with those vaccine mandates lifted, what happens to those members of the military? It's an interesting question and something I think that we have to continue to monitor.